Welcome to another Stuck in the Middle podcast. This is a book club review where we explore books that challenge our perspectives and transform our lives. I'm your host, Uncle AK, and today with me I got Therese, Barbara, Mane, and Josie. And we are the book club, man. Stuck in the Middle podcast. We are stepping into a space of profound healing and growth. We're about to get our hands dirty, not in soil or dirt, anything like that, but in the very fabric of our emotions and spiritual lives. We are deep diving into a book that has been revolutionary for so many, and that is The Garden Within, where the war within your emotions ends and your most powerful life begins, by the brilliant Dr. Anita Phillips. If you've ever felt like you are at war with your feelings, if you've been told that emotions are a sign of weakness, or if you're searching for a way to bridge the gap between your faith and your mental health, then you're in the right place. This episode is your virtual book club meeting. I'll guide you with this discussion, as well as, my co-host here, posing questions for you to reflect on, whether you're listening at home, in the car, in the office, and wherever you're at. Grab that palm wine or whatever you're drinking on, and let's jump into it. Before you guys open the book, I know we talked about the length of it. When you started reading it, going in the middle, I'm pretty sure, listening to something about religion and mental health, those two combined together. I don't know about you guys. For me, it was really tough, but for you guys, what was the first impression listening to that, that very title, The Garden Within? And then when you started reading the book, what was, that the first thing that came to mind? Like, how did you feel? I want to go Therese, but no, let me go Mane first, and then Therese.
The title for me did not. I feel like a different title would have been better, because I recently got it. Well, I've always loved plants, so when I heard that The Garden Within, I just thought she would, connect humans to plants, which is something I have been, on a journey of learning, and I've come to learn that humans humans and plants have a lot in common, which I knew before reading this book. But for her to throw in the spiritual aspect, which I kind of understood, but then it was still challenging. The part I loved, which I agree with, is the connection of the emotions that we feel are the emotions that Jesus felt. Because there was this one question, somebody would ask me, what would Jesus do? And I would say Jesus would flip tables, because he did flip tables. But besides flipping tables, which is human, he also forgave people, he raised the dead, he healed the sick, and all of that. But to connect that to plants, sometimes it threw me off, and sometimes I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So that's how I felt about it.
I read the book because the first time I read the book, because I went looking for it. There was something, there were questions I had that I was not getting answers to. Then I stumbled on something she said in, I think it was a preaching, I stumbled on a video and she spoke. I'm like, wait a minute. And then she talked about, someone said, oh, the author of this book. I was like, I have to read this woman's book. And then I did. It was everything that I was looking for. And then to Mane's point, she does actually compare us with plants in the book, down to a drawing and everything, from seed to trees to roots to stem to fruit, everything. So there's a whole section of the book that's a parallel comparison for us humans and plants.
Can I add to that? I think I watched an interview with her on Oprah before, and I don't know if I saw it from UT, but I saved it. But I wasn't saving it to read her book. I was just saving it because whatever she said in that interview made sense. Then when I was reading her book, I was like, that little clip was fun to hear, but reading the whole book had me like, Yeah, it's a okay book. But if you have answers, the book can answer some questions for you.
Yeah, the book has tons of answers. You know, it's one of those books where, you know, when you read it, yeah, like T, you know, you got to read it like 8 times. You know what I mean? And every time you come back, you have a new perspective. It's like the Bible, bro. Like, you know, every time you come back, you have a new perspective because there's no way you would, you know, you would even remember what you read the last time, you know, because you pick something new and be like, wait, what? And it really challenges you because she does not only give you like theory, she also goes to the practical of it. But my next question to Barbara and Josie is, um, the subtitle of this book promises where the war within your emotions ends and your most powerful life begins. For you, did this book deliver that promise? Why or why not?
I would say yes, it was promised, but its deliverance is person specific. Okay, she gives you the roadmap on how to fulfill that, but then it's left to you to take that roadmap and adapt it to yourself. Okay, because we each have different experiences that we've had. So when you bring that experience into perspective with this book, you're stuck in between. So I read the book the first time. Yes, I read it in a haste. And then because we had this extended time to do the recording, I went back and I was 2/3 in it. And the same way, the point you made about the Bible, there are things I'm picking up the second time around that make me wonder, did you even listen the first time? Or what's the story? Or is it because now I'm working on my own life experiences and now trying to see where she's coming from? So in terms of that promise, I think it's person specific. And yes, she fulfills the promise, but she leaves it to you to figure it out based off of your own experience.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Okay. Being that you said that, let's start on top of that, right? And I'm coming back to you, Barbara. She asserts that God created the heart as a true center of human experience, not the mind, right? How did the idea challenge or align with your prior understanding of human nature or spirituality?
Okay, now the scriptures, I'm not remembering, but it was something that she said. I don't even remember what chapter. I think it was even before I started reading. She said the relationship between your heart and your mind, I guess, is the same as that of a soil and the plants. And so your thoughts kind of defines your feelings, and her whole, I think the whole, if I understand correctly, the whole book, it teaches, it is trying to teach us how to control those feelings, control those emotions, to be able to express them in I think a healthy way. And I completely lost my train of thought. Ask a question one more time. I was going somewhere with that.
Yeah, that she mentioned that God created the heart as a true center of human experience, not the mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did this idea challenge or align with your prior understanding of human nature and spirituality? That's if you even, challenge in the first place, right?
Let's come back to me. Let me think about that.
Okay, I'll push it to T. Can you take that, please? Oh wait, sorry,
Josie has the hand up.
Josie, go ahead.
Okay, so maybe the scripture that Babs is talking about could be from the heart, the mind speaks, or something like that, out of the belly of something like that. I think I'm not even getting the scripture well, but it's like it's not what corrupts a man is what goes in, is what comes out. So it's coming from the heart. So when you make when your emotions are manifested, they're coming from your heart, not really your mind, because that's where everything is situated. That's where everything is settled. Yeah, that's all.
I think the verse is God Guard your heart, for everything flows out of it.
Yes.
See, did you want to add to that? And while you're adding to it, could you describe your garden within, as you read the book, like what your garden was or what you thought your garden was to how you began reshaping, your idea of it, or reshaping your garden from that book?
I agree with what Josie said, but for me, remember in the beginning, I said that I read this book because I was looking for answers, right? I was in a place in my life where, you know how you go through something and they're like, just manifest. That's the thing they tell you, manifest, be positive, encourage yourself. But I was in a place where I could not do that. As positive as I tried to focus, as manifesting as I tried to conjure, I realized that I fell short in the emotional side. And then on the other side, I was like, I must be weak if I cannot bring myself to think positive, to focus on the good. And so I was like, but then, so I was like contrast to me where it was like, I felt kind of guilty that I was not strong enough to be able to think positive things through this. But then on the other side of me, I was like, but this doesn't add up. Like how people always tell you think positive, but nobody tells you how to do it. Right? And so I was like, I couldn't. And then that was a time when I was also looking for a therapist. And I was like, I wish I can find a therapist that can combine God's word and this, because I feel like I don't have faith if I cannot think positive things. Like I'm failing as a Christian. Then I came to this book. And then where I think it challenged me was first to acknowledge that my faith and my human nature is not independent of my emotional life at all. I cannot say I would think positive and disregard everything else that I'm feeling. That's not how it's supposed to work. That's why I was having troubles. The first thing it did to me was to acknowledge that, yes, these things are real. And as long as my emotions are in turmoil, my thoughts are never going to change. And what it challenged me there was that as before I used to think, you think positive, then you start feeling great, then you start feeling gratitude. It's the other way around. Your emotions inform your thoughts. And I was like, wait a minute now. I was trying to do it the other way around. That's why it was not working. Because I was trying to bypass my emotional state and jump straight to faith and jump straight to think positive. But then the book made me realize that it's the other way around. I have to start with first accepting that my emotional state is very much as a part of my human nature. I don't think before this book I've ever accepted that part of me fully and wholeheartedly. Till after I read and I understood that that is a very essential part of me.
We thought to see sadness, anger, and fear as problems, right? But Dr. Phillips calls them emotional hunger. Is it pungents? Right? Like the stomach growls, it tells you that, you need food. These emotions are messengers to tell you that, something is wrong with your core, right? Something is really upsetting you, right? So when we see our emotions this way, we can't stop fighting them, and we start listening to them, we start giving to them. So she states that pain denied is pain multiplied, right? How has this concept shown up in your life? Mane, how's this concept shown up in your life? And what makes it so challenging, for us to genuinely acknowledge and sit with our pain?
I'd like to piggyback off of what he just said before answering that question. Before reading this book, I think I don't know what I watched, but it helped me see myself in God or see God in myself. That's why I came up with this phrase that what would Jesus do? Jesus would flip tables. If Jesus, as spiritual, perfect as he was, could express emotions, why can't I, as human in my weakness, not express emotions or weak emotions, because they're different kind of emotions. And I think an example that was also given that I read or came across before reading this book is, even when he was being, crucified or being beaten and all of that, he said, he prayed and said, God, if this is your will, take this cup away from me. Or when he was crucified on the cross, he said, Father, Father, why have you forsaken me? So if him in his superiority could express emotions, why not me? So this was a time when I was trying to process my emotions, because during the pandemic or prior to the pandemic, I did not like feeling or processing my emotions. I would just brush it off. But then I learned that what you resist persists. So I had to start learning through therapy, because I got a therapist. I would have preferred an in-person, but during the pandemic it was closed, so I had an online therapist. And she said, healing is feeling. So you have to sit with that emotion. You have to express it in order to move forward. And it's not as hard today as it was pre-pandemic, but that thinking about it now kind of gets me, gets all the feelings. That's why I kept pausing the book, because the point you mentioned, T, about, you feel the feeling that you think the thought. I thought that the thought generates the feeling. And even though she explained it in many different ways, I still could not get it, because I tried. I think there was an example in the book where she said, think about an experience. Then how did that make you feel? Did you feel the feeling before you thought the thought, or did you think the thought before you thought the feeling? And to me, I feel like the thought came, then the feeling happened, the emotion happened. But it's the reverse. Nonetheless, I'm still learning. Because growing up, we were taught, or the African culture is like, expressing your feelings or expressing your emotions is weakness. Just deal with it, just get over it. Even when people are grieving, they're like, oh, be strong, and blah, blah, blah. And I have learned to not tell people that be strong. Because being strong looks different for different people. Sometimes people need to feel their feelings before they can get to a place to where they say, okay, this has happened. I cannot stay stuck in this. I need to move through the feeling and not just sit in the feeling. Like that whole concept of when somebody loses, someone says, oh, they're in a better place. How do you know that? But maybe they know that, maybe they're thinking that, but in that moment, I don't think that that's what they want to hear. She said something about meeting people where they are in their feeling, and that's something I learned in therapy. Like, if I cannot meet you where you are, I'm not going to try to get you out of it. But if I know that you've been sitting in this for too long, it's like opening space for them to see how they can move through the feeling and not just sit in it. So I think, not being able to sit with our pain or process it could be a cultural upbringing thing, and it shows up physically, which I think she mentioned in the book. I hope I answered your question, Ike.
You sure did. You sure did. Anybody wants to,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, somebody was talking. Go ahead then.
Yeah. Okay. So there so there are a lot of things that Mani talked about that just resonated with me, and I'll try to be quick. I remember freshman in college, I was going through so much. Oldest in the household, poster child, whatever you do, everybody else is following behind. Just too much pressure. I go to see a therapist. The school said, hey, freshman, you just left your house, go talk to someone about how to transition from, into college life. So I go to sit with this lady. We're talking. She's like, you don't have to lean into all this pressure. You just have to be yourself. And I'm thinking to myself, no, I can't. Because if I lean into all these emotions that I feel, I'm gonna go do English as a major, because right now that's how I feel. I feel like I don't want any stress. I just want to be in college. I want to learn. I want to get that interaction, that community, and I don't want all this stress. But then I had come in there for a science major. I left that place. I said, you know what? No, I'm not listening to anything she says because she's going to get me in trouble. Um, and that's where the cultural thing comes in, is that um, we've been groomed, and I don't know if that's the right word, but we've been cultivated, to not show emotion, because emotions are considered weak or considered rebellious sometimes. And you know pandemic made me wonder a lot of things too. And I'm in a field where the pandemic affected me a lot, but I did not process my emotions because I was scared how to process it. Which reminds me of a quote in the book. She said, "The flow can become a flood." So it's like, when you process your emotions, if it's something that you feel might overwhelm you, get in touch with a therapist to help you navigate that, because the flow can become a flood. So to me, that's always my fear, is that if I open up and let my emotions out, it's going to become a flood to the point where I don't know how to control it. But the funny thing too is it's seeped out into relationships. It's seeped out into interactions with people. It's seeped out into my associations. So now when I look back and now I'm reading this book, I now realize, oh wow. So what you did not talk about, or what you did not process, that pain, that fear, all those emotions that you did not sit with, you somehow it dissipated out of your system. So you needed to have taken care of it and taken control. So it's I'm rambling, but I think it all has to do with working on that, your heart, taking control of your emotions, because it will eventually seep out and it could destroy relationships around you.
Can I add into that real quick? It's like a mantra I took little notes, and every time she says something, she always said, first we feel, then we think, then we do. Yes. And a lot of the times we act out of our feelings. And which is why she was very heavy, that we had to work on the posture of your heart. It links back to a question Uncle AK asked before, that I was rambling. Something about her, the call. Okay, I cannot paraphrase the question, but it has something to do with how God created us, our heart, and linking it to the feeling. So it kind of ties out to everything that you truly do feel first. You have a feeling about something, and then it sends like neurons or waves to your brain, and you start thinking, like you start spiraling, and then you act upon whatever that feeling is. And that if we can, I guess, fix the posture of your heart, take care of your heart first, a lot of the feelings that you have can be positive rather than negative, or you know how to manage them. So I just wanted to add to what everybody was saying. But to answer the question you asked, Mane, it was something that she said, and it was one of the things I wrote. She said that that joy and fear makes us problem solve accurately. And that was an interesting concept to me, especially when she said the part of fear, that it makes us, we can problem solve something very accurately. So it actually sends me thinking that sometimes that out of fear, what are some things that, because I'm afraid I'm going to fail, that I don't want to say imposter syndrome, but that fear that we all have, right? Especially if just try to piggyback on what Josie said, being a cultural thing, or being the first in your home and being the poster child of everybody doing everything right, will put that much pressure. And in some cases, not all the cases, but in some instances, it does make you act right. We are like the good child. There's nothing wrong with us. We are like the perfect. I don't even know the word, but we're so perfectly done because we're just so much afraid of failing. I never thought about that. I actually had never thought about it. Then I said, actually, you know what? It is right. Even at work, my fear of having to get into a meeting with my manager or having when we're looking at all these RATs with all of the C-suite people looking down at us, not doing what we're supposed to do, or looking at me as not an employee that is working, I actually do the shit I'm supposed to do correctly. And I was, I was like, oh, God damn, okay, all right, yeah.
I think that the point that is coming to mind when you're saying that is that fear is a protective emotion, kind of. Fear protects you from danger. I think that's from her book. Because when you read some of those, you don't know which one, but it's from where, but yeah. I think that's kind of linked to that point.
Yeah, she also talked about when you do something out of the fear or the joy and love or joy versus when you do it out of fear or thing. You will get the same result, but I think what you're saying is that the thing is the fruit of whatever that result is tainted by whatever drove you to those actions. And that was like, because sometimes you're like, well, I did it anyways, okay, but you tainted your fruit though. It's like if you plant a poison seed and a non-poison seed, you still have a fruit, but one of them is tainted. That kind of had me started thinking a lot about my intentions of why I am doing things or saying things, because I don't want a tainted fruit. It would look nice on the outside. They would say you did it good, like Babs was saying, for the fear of maybe your parents or whatever. But sometimes look at the fruit of it. It's like sometimes not all successful people are motivated by the right reasons, right? So that was an interesting piece there for me, that fear versus joy, what motivates you and fruit.
One of the most courageous things, Dr. Phillips, right, does tackle is spiritual bypassing. And that's the practice of using spiritual beliefs to numb or avoid emotional pain. Think of responding to deep grief with, a platitude like, well, God is in control, right? We had a lot, especially in our African community. Oh man, somebody broke his leg. Don't worry, God is in control, bruh. I mean, excruciating pain, bruh. Like if it was in control, she'd probably not let me break my foot. But that's besides the point, right? She argues that this is dangerous, and it could lead to spiritual breakdown. So, my question here to you guys is, first of all, how did she do bridging the gap between mental health and spirituality? It's not something a lot of people can really do and do it the way she did it, right? In my view. So how did she bridge that gap? And well, let's start there. How did you guys see, how did she do bridging that gap?
Oh, I have a thesis on that.
Go for it.
I think, and I'm not by no means calling her an expert in, like she's the authority on this, right? Before somebody comes for me. But in this book, speaking in this book, I think she did that beautifully. Because for me, that was what I was seeking, right? Because there were all these things I was thinking in my head that a Christian is not supposed to have. Thoughts that I was having, a Christian is not supposed to have. Someone who has faith, you're not supposed to be feeling this way. And so I was like, but then if I'm not supposed to be feeling that way, why did God make me? And why am I with that potential to be like this? And so reading the book, where she has started explaining what the nervous system looks like, what two nervous systems are, how they function, linking fight, fear, and freeze. I can speak. Right? And reading all that and then seeing that how she demonstrates that in the life of Jesus is something that I had never seen. she alluded to something that drew my attention. It's like most of the times where Jesus did his greatest miracles, he was the most emotional. That blew my mind. And then I went back and reading it. When he cried at Lazarus' grave, he rose Lazarus from the dead. When he was accepting God's greatest will for his life, he cried and gave up, literally. And they'll say, oh, Jesus is king. He cried and he wanted to run away too from his calling. But then he chose otherwise. It's all these different things that you see in the Bible where she just superimposes that psychology on scripture. And I'm like, wait a minute now. They only tell you Jesus flipped tables. That's about as emotional as they say, because someone wants to justify their anger. Jesus displayed way more than that. It's not about, okay, this is your license to go and be angry because Jesus flipped tables. He wrestled with his calling too. He wrestled with losing his friend. He wrestled with a whole lot of other things. And then, so looking at that, and I'm like, it kind of humanized my walk with God in a way that I never done. That spiritual bypass thing was a lot when I talked to people. That was all I was getting. Oh, you are a Christian. Have faith. And I'm like, I just explained to you that I'm drowning. How am I supposed to have faith? Oh, you are strong. You've made it tough things before. You got this. And it's just like, okay, but what about these things that I'm feeling? What about these thoughts that I'm having? So that was the response I kept getting from people. And I'm like, there has to be a better way. It has to be, because this is not working. And so reading this book, how she explained that and put it, I was just like, you know what? I'm still a child of God, because that was my fear. Like, then I probably have walked so far away from God now that I can't even get my mind to think right. But then I read all that and I'm like, wait a minute now. This is still faith. I'm still a child of God. Now, come on now. That to me was good news. I don't know about anybody else.
I think for me it was confirming my wildest thoughts, imaginations, and all of that. Because I think, like I said in the beginning, I'm like, because in most, I don't know, preachings, in most sermons, prior to this book, I had never heard a sermon or a preaching on God's emotions. Besides the fact that He's a merciful God, He's a graceful God, He's a forgiving God, and all of that. But then nobody talked about His emotions, when He raised Lazarus or when He was dying and all of that. Like, why is that in the Bible if it's not to show us that as spiritual or as supreme as Jesus is, He became human so He could experience all of these? And if we are made in God's image, why does this part separate us from that image? So the way that she put it together, I think that's one of the part of the book that made me constantly smile. It's like seeing my imagination come to life. And this is why I love reading, because it answers questions that other people cannot answer. Or it answers questions that if you ask somebody, they'll look at you like you have 10 heads. Like in 2023, when I had like a medical malpractice situation, somebody just reached out to me to check on me, and I said I was feeling XYZ. And she said, God can handle your emotions. And I was like, huh? She said, yes. However you feel in this moment about, because my question was, if God is God, and if I feel like I am God's child, why did He let this happen? She said, I cried out, ask God, you may or may not get the answer, but you need to get it out of your system. And I was like, wow. Somebody heard, or somebody was listening. And once I got that out, ever since then, I'm just like, okay, God, like I have random conversations with God throughout the day. I'm like, okay, thank you for this, thank you for that. But why did this happen? Why is this happening? What am I supposed to learn from this? So it's this book is like a create experience. Like, oh, I'm not crazy. And just like any other book, it answers a lot of questions that everyday people cannot answer. And it's like that little but light at the end of the tunnel, in the tunnel, because somebody has said that if there is no light in the tunnel, how do you really know you're in the tunnel? So the light in the tunnel might be dim, but there is light for you to keep moving through to the brighter light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm like, yeah, and I think that everybody, if you can get your hand on this, it's gonna be challenging, but I want to believe that it would answer some questions for you, especially this Christian walk thing, because it's a struggle. Because if I'm God's child, why is X, Y, Z happen? And he answers those questions.
Just to piggyback off what Mane and T said, I think one of the biggest things in this book is, I don't want to say it's targeted towards Christians, because a lot of people in the church, or church people, do suffer a lot expressing their emotions, and they deal with a lot of things. And half of the time is that either we are in our brain because of what we're listening to our pastors, our priests say something, we're self-condemning ourselves, like it's not okay to express that you feel like the example T said, that she felt like she was drifting away from God because of all these things that she was expressing. And I truly enjoyed how in this book she went back to the Bible, which at the end, if you listen to the end of the book, she said, read your Bible. That the best gift her father on earth ever gave to her was to tell her to read the Bible. And the fact that she read the Bible, did go to school and become a therapist, and she's able to incorporate both, has helped her a long way, which is what she's trying to get a lot of Christian people to do. But the fact that she used those examples with all the emotional aspects, when Jesus did his biggest miracles, that he was in emotional stress, she made it okay for Christians, the ones that will listen, because the ones that will listen, I actually understand where she's coming from. That actually Jesus still went through exactly what you're going through, but at the end of the day, he was able to manage whatever those emotions are, and he did what he had to do. So you have to pick up from there, and I appreciated that, because I believe wholeheartedly that every Christian, every one of us, if you're on a journey with Christ, those feelings that she's talking about, we all have gone through it. We all have those things where we want to say something, or something happens, or we're angry with God, but you're afraid that if I say this thing like that, this man can just vex and do something that he's not supposed to do. So, and let me suppress it. But if you look at it technically, whatever is in your heart, he can hear, he can see it. So just get it out. And once you can get it out, you have a clean slate in your heart that you can sit down and now you pray. And when you pray, you're praying a prayer from a peaceful place, and a prayer that he can hear and not out of emotion. But one day you can say, okay, Father, this has happened. I accept it. It is messed up as it is. You probably have a goal. Not that you do have a plan. Help me get there. Which I felt like she articulated in the book so well. Like it was T. And T, thank you for that. It made me remember some things that I couldn't remember in the book. So you should talk more. Talk after you, because it be stimulating things.
I also like how she mentioned two books that I read, Anita book and the Homecoming book. I think the Homecoming book talks more on the spiritual bypassing. And I read that book. At first, I bought the book in 2021, started but didn't finish in 2023, when I was, wrestling with this whole medical malpractice thing. I continued reading the book, and the book is kind of heavy on spiritual bypassing in the African culture. And yeah, for her to reference that, because I'm going to say most of the books I have read, the other recommendation are usually at the end of the book or in the beginning or so. But for her to reference or recommend other books on the same subject in the book, let me know. That was really good. So yeah, the Homecoming book and the Anti-Taps, Positive Energy. I love it.
I have a question. Was it T? I think it's more towards you, T. Was it during the story that she linked with this conversation we're having? Was it with the woman who came to her, who was this big public persona, and her children had died from gun violence or so, and she had not processed her grief? And
I think it's her daughter, not her children.
House fire.
House fire, yes.
Was it all her? Sorry, go ahead.
was it like, I love the example she used in that. I don't remember, was this the story that she was trying to say? She used this fact that Jesus did have those emotions, so it was okay for you to express them. And because the woman was able to finally, I guess, go through whatever she went through, and she cried because she said, I think for the listeners, right, it was the story of a woman. I might be misquoting, so please do not correct me. I can't remember it. But the woman lost her family in a fire, or it was a fire or shooting, and she was an advocate for it. She was doing conferences, and she had survived, and she had another child, and so she had been pouring all these emotions, but she truly had not processed it. And so when she went and met Dr. Anita Phillips, which is also a grief counselor, that was the first time the woman had cried since her daughter's funeral. So she had not processed it. And the woman couldn't express those feelings, I think, because she said either she was afraid to do that, or she didn't think she was able to. And so she linked, it's such a powerful part, because she linked Jesus's experiences to whatever the woman was going through. And she said, if Jesus can cry, so can you. The woman was finally able to like release, and she started like a whole healing journey. So just wanted to mention that.
As we near the end here to our conversation, we cannot end this conversation without talking about the harvest, right? What grows in a well-tended garden? Dr. Phillips identifies 3 key concepts, and they are relationships, purpose, and legacy, right? How does Dr. Phillips' definition of purpose redefine or simplify your understanding of what it means to live a purposeful life, right? In the book, she says relationships are built on vulnerability and authenticity. Purpose redefined, not as some grand singular calling, but as the gift you offer to meet a need in a community you're a part of. And legacy described as pouring unconditional love into a future we may not get to see. So the question again, how did Dr. Phillips' definition of purpose redefine or simplify your understanding of what it means to live a purposeful life? Yeah. Anybody can take it.
Go ahead. Yeah. So I think her definition of relationships made me start looking back and analyzing the relationships that I have, and realizing that I am afraid of being vulnerable with people in relationships that I have or have had, because I'm always scared of being vulnerable and what people can do with that vulnerability. But at the end of the day, if you want people to be vulnerable with you, you have to be willing to reciprocate that vulnerability as well. But I always feel like you can trust me with your secrets. It's not going anywhere, but I don't know what you're going to do with mine if I tell you. So I think that's that vulnerability. The fact that you can trust me, but I don't know if I can trust you with my secret, because I'm scared of what you're going to do with them. Okay. And then when it comes to purpose, it made me start thinking, what am I doing with my life now? Am I living a purposeful life, or am I going with the flow? Am I being dragged along on someone else's purpose? I was, before this, I finished a Bible study that had something to do with theft of time, where if you don't have a purpose, or if you don't know where you're going to become part of somebody else's journey. So the idea with that made me wonder, my current goal now in life, is it my purpose? Am I deriving joy from it? Is it serving a need, or am I being dragged along and helping someone else fulfill their own purpose? Okay. And then when it comes to legacy, what can I do to feed into the next future, the future generations? What can I contribute now to the future? Are there things that I need to work on? Are there structures that I need to put together? Is it communities that I need to become a part of to set up that legacy? So those three aspects made me go back and reconsider my life as a whole.
So there was one thing I was going to ask specifically to purpose, right? She defined purpose as a seed. When she was talking about the three aspects, she said purpose is like a seed-bearing plant we weren't created just to exist for existence state. There was a reason why God put us on earth, and there's a reason why you did put that seed into the ground. It was meant to flourish. It was meant to grow. And I thought that was very interesting because in all reality, a lot of us do not know what our purpose is. We do ask. We actually pray to God. I do. Let me not speak for others, but I do. I do ask God, what is my purpose? What is my goal? What am I supposed to do? And I thought it was very beautiful when she described that if God put you on this earth, just like a seed, there was a reason why he did put it there. You just need to figure out what that reason is.
I love how she simplified purpose. It actually made me smile because I read The Purpose Driven Life back in 2015. And it said your purpose will be found in your passion. What are you passionate about? What lights you up? What would you wake up every day and look forward to doing? And the fact that she said your purpose doesn't have to be grand. And I think that in the era of social media, there is this pressure to feel like if your purpose is not trend, or if what you're doing is not trending, then it's not purposeful, which is not something that I buy into. Like, I interact with people on Instagram and they're like, oh, I'm shadow banned and my views are going down, and I'm like, okay, do you wake up the next day and still want to do what you're doing, whether you're shadow banned or not? If your followers are dropping like flies, or they are not in the cage, or do you derive, I don't know what's the word, do you derive fulfillment in doing what you do? If there were no followers or viewers, would you still do what you're doing? So I love how she simplified that. And in the aspect of friendship, just picking back off of Josie, I used to be there, like, maybe because I'm in the health field and there is this whole HIPAA thing, you have to hold people's information without sharing it. I find that people easily trust me or share with me their deepest pain, deepest secret, and all of that. And part of me not being vulnerable enough to want to do that is because I did not trust that people would hold my information with the sacredness that it deserves. And the one time that I tried this whole vulnerability thing, it went south. In the sense that I pick up on energy, I pick up on body language. If I tell somebody something and I go hear it somewhere else, I know where it came from. I know who said it, because I know I can tell 3 different people the same information, but I tell you in different ways. So that it gets out there, I know who said it. Then that tells me that, okay, am I either gonna not share this kind of information with this person, or determine what, because regardless, when you share information with people, you're indirectly accepting that this information can go out there. But then, the only way to build relationships is to be vulnerable. You can also choose to share the information with the disclaimer or with the opening thing that, okay, this information is pertinent to me. I would like for it to not go out there. But then there are people who can automatically tell that, hey, this information is being shared to me in secrecy or in privacy, so I have to hold that information with the privacy that it deserves. But not everybody automatically gets that. And I think one book that got me to get to that point, or two books, well, one book, something about the power of vulnerability by Brené Brown. She said you have to determine the people in your circle who have earned the right to hear the depths. I don't know if this is how she said it, but the way that she said it made me feel free. Okay, I'm going to tell this person this information. If it goes out there, then okay, that's the last time I get to tell them that. But yeah, it's kind of like picking your poison or picking your battles or picking your fights. And the best way to test people is pick somebody that you think that you can trust and tell them something that is not as deep, and see whether or not or how long it becomes public health information. And from there you can decide.
If you know it shouldn't be out there, take it to the grave. But anyways, the walls have ears, just saying. They say, well, this is that part of the the recording where we have rapid fire questions, because we've covered a lot. So we've covered so much ground today, this recording. For the purpose of time, let's do this. What is one significant revelation or breakthrough you gained from reading The Garden Within that you feel you would have a lasting impact, or that you feel I would have a lasting impact on you?
It's the idea of, I don't know if I'm going to say this right because I still struggle with it, but the fact that she talked about it and explained it, I'll have to go back to it. The fact that it's feeling first, then thought. I thought it was thought and then feeling. So that, I think it's probably a lasting, a thing that I have to rewire my brain around, and it's freeing to know that that's the path as opposed to, she talk about like bottom up, top down. Yeah, but that's the one thing that stands out with me.
Gotcha. You got it, Therese?
To me, the one thing that this book I will forever remember is learning to accept the entirety of my human experience. The book, and I know this might come out really weird.
I didn't understand that.
Sorry, AI. I think for me, the book gave me permission to be emotional within context and in a healthy way. That is something that will stay with me forever.
That's an interesting one. Okay. Barbara and Shozi, if you had to sum up your key takeaways from this book in one single sentence, what would it be? Shozi or Barbara, whoever has the sentence first.
Key takeaway. I honestly do feel there were quite a lot of points to take away from the book in general, but for me, I think, I don't know if because I was just focused on one particular chapter, but for the entire chapter, she kept telling me indirectly that my heart is a soil to my entire life, and that I need to water my heart. I need to fix my heart posture. I need to fix a lot in my heart for me to, it has to flourish for a lot of things to flow the way they're supposed to flow. And there was scripture that I couldn't remember before. It was for Proverbs 4:23, which is out of your heart flows abundance of your mind. So there's a lot of things, because I am an overthinker. I do tend to overthink sometimes, and I will act out of that. And one thing that the book did show me, that it's where my heart is sitting. It's flowing from my heart. And so there's a lot in there that I need to fix. There's a lot in there that I need to fix. Even my mind, my relationships, and everything is your heart posture. And which, funny thing, she linked it to to scripture, because if you do read the Bible and you do listen, it does tell you that even when they talk about offerings, that God actually looks at your heart posture and everything else. You can offer $20 billion to God, or you can build schools all over the world and help the hungry and feed the homeless and house the home, whatever you do. If your heart posture is not right, that means nothing to God. And it does say it in the Bible as well. So it was just something that was very important. It was a good reminder. And I feel like it kind of was talking to me directly because it aligns with some of the things I'm praying about. So
for me, my takeaway from this book is, one, I will look at it from different sectors. One, scientifically, I never knew the vagus nerve was disconnected to every part of the system. The diagram, the book, the way she drew it out gave me a whole new perspective about how the mind works. And when it comes to spiritual aspect, I would say that I now have a whole different perspective. I have a whole different understanding of how to tie my emotions, because I read the book and I understood it from a spiritual perspective. So it made sense to have that scriptural background to back up what she was saying. And now for me now to go back and work on my own emotions, knowing that there are Bible verses that I can go back on, which tie into my belief system, because I know she also mentioned that too, which tie into my belief system. Okay, and I think that's it.
Thank you. All right, and finally, for fun, if you could ask Dr. Anita Phillips one question after reading a book. Well, yeah, if you guys have one question right now.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Okay. If she were sitting in front of me now, I would ask her, what is your roadmap to heal from wound stacking, from unhealed emotions that have been stacked up? Do you go back to the Bible? Do you go back to your heart? Do you go back to that garden within? How do you process that? That's my
question. You said wound stacking?
Yeah.
Oh.
We might have to DM her this question. She replies to DMs though.
Okay.
Woo! That is deep, and I love that. Wasn't there a part where she mentioned about thinking about an experience you had? Like she was trying to walk us through one of the things that she walks people through in therapy. She was like, think about an experience that you had. Think about how you felt or how it made you feel. And with what you've just read or listened to, how would you do it differently? I think that's how So, and I don't know, in the event that she cannot physically help you unstack those wounds, maybe using that could help, or getting a therapist who can, because I don't, for some reason that sounded like where I was in 2020 when I was like hunting for a therapist, and I was like, I need to unstack these wounds.
Yeah, it's the part where she was talking. It's the part where she was talking to the girl who was sexually assaulted by her dad, and then her stepsister came and that part.
That's the example that came to mind. Well, that part. So,
and there's another book that when she mentioned that, throughout the book she mentioned the body keeping score. I read the book 2 months ago, but before the book, somebody gave me the book back in May because I would have these sensations and I could not understand where it was coming from. So reading the book's actually free on YouTube. I'm going to say that. Cut this part out. But the actual book is there. Like you will feel certain sensations or certain thoughts, and you will not know where it's coming from. Funny thing is, it happened. Something happened. You had the feeling, you didn't process it. But to answer your question, AK, which I kind of forgot. What was the question? Oh, if you had asked her a question. Let me come back to that. Let me think about it.
Okay. Barbara.
Ask her, please, can you mentor me?
That's a good one.
But I don't have one question for her. Like I just want to let her just mentor me just for a little bit. I will shadow her. I don't think she does a whole lot of that now. She's a full-time pastor now. But I'll be like, please mentor me. Help a lot so.
Any other fun questions?
Like honestly, I don't know what question to ask her, because I think the book answers a lot of things, and it's one of those books I'll probably have to go back and read 2 or 3 times to come up, because even when I thought about something else, she answered with a real life scenario and it's applicable to you. Actually, I don't know what question I ask her. I actually don't have any, because she pretty much answered them all in the book to me. But I'll probably listen to somebody else's questions like, oh, like what Josie just said. I'm like, oh, that's a good question. So, yeah.
For me, I'll actually thank her for the book. It's like Barbara said, it answered a whole lot of unasked questions. Like I didn't ask anybody, and because when I think was it you we recommended the book, and I was like from the summary, my thought was I think this book is gonna either trigger me or piss me off, and I would say it triggered me in a good way. Yeah. And yeah. Off the top of my head, I don't have any questions, but I would thank her for the book. It's a freeing book. Freedom.
I mean, okay, what about you?
Yeah, I'm trying to there's something she said in the book. I'm trying to see if I could pull it up. There was something along the lines of where she mentioned that, I think she probably said it 2 or 3 times, that therapy is not for mental health people, but for everybody. I forget how she put it, but the way she put it, man, I was like, yo, yeah, I need to write that down, because, yeah, anyways.
She mentioned before, Sarah, she mentioned the story of how if you had an injury, you would take medication. Therapy is like medicine for the mind. So why is it such a taboo for people to seek therapy for the mind, where we would quickly take anesthesia before surgery? Why not just go into surgery without an anesthesia? I loved all of that, because I was like, yeah. In our society today, it's like we'll pop a pill for a headache. Meanwhile, you can help a headache with either rest or drinking water. So that we feel like we need a mental health diagnosis to go see a therapist. And it's probably one of the things I've been preaching. Maybe I see it that way because I took psychology undergrad, and I learned that you don't need a diagnosis to see a therapist. You just have a hard time processing your feelings, processing your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that you have a mental health issue. You just have a hard time with your mind and your emotions. And
that's that safe space Josie was talking about, right? If you don't feel like you can be vulnerable, there you go. If you have to pay for it, well, then that's the price taking your secrets to the grave.
Yeah. So, thank you guys again for joining us in this. This is a very deep one. You know what I mean? Hopefully, you made it to the end of this recording and to the end of the book as well. And probably read it again and again to get better perspective to it. So I know I'm going to read it again. I don't know when though, but I need to read it again, because I do like her bridging the gap between spirituality and mental health. Like that alone is, prime in this whole book, The Garden Within. And fun fact, I actually went to go and Google that thing, and I typed the garden in, you, not within. Hey, Jesus. Anyways, man, thank you all again for joining. This is Stockholm Podcast and collab with Palm Wine Central Podcast, the book club review. And we are discussing Dr. Anita Phillips' book, The Garden Within. Pick it up on all, wherever you buy books, audio, the hand one, if you are a reader, It's a very good book. Anyways, catch you guys on the next one. Oh, sorry. Our next book read. Sorry. T, what's our next book read?
A light-hearted one. After surgery, let's recover. It's The One That Got Away by Gayle.
What is it? Got away?
No, sir. The One That Got Away. Gayle.
The One That Got Away. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to give us a little synopsis of it? Just a little.
It's a relatable book. How about that?
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. Anyways. Man. Oh, yeah. So The One That Got Away. It should be light. It's non-fictional?
Yeah, it is.
Non-fictional? Yeah.
It's fictional.
Oh, fictional. There you go. Yes. That's what I meant. Sorry. Fiction. Non-fictional means real life stuff. And then fictional means, fictional. Sorry. Yes. Thank you. And you see this book, you see what I did to me? Anyways, guys, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.